Hi, Josh.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how's it going, man? This is the first time we've ever spoken. Even though I feel like I've been following you on Twitter for like maybe a year and a half, 2 years. I don't remember when.
And that's the thing is like I have all of these people that I know. I know people by their profile picture or their Twitter photo more than I don't know. We've never hung out, we've never talked, but yet I know you. And there's all of these people that I know. I have like close friends on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all these other social medias that I've never met. And then suddenly, like now, because of quarantining and what's going on, we hop on Zoom conversations or Discord conversations together. And suddenly I'm like, oh, they really are real people.
We are flesh and blood. We bleed. Yeah. Yeah, man. I found that I've kind of gotten closer to some people who have just been icons to me. Like icons as in like on their profile, not icons as in like, you know.
Right, exactly.
Right,
yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying.
I wanted to make a confession right off the bat is when I sent you the message to be on the podcast, it was honestly just because I liked the stuff that you posted. I don't remember
nice.
How I followed you or why. It was probably like a film festival or something. But I just followed you because I liked the stuff that you posted. Then I was like, oh, you said you were trying to get the word out about your movie. That's when you sent me all the materials. And I was like, wait, this guy was on Rebel Without a Crew? What's happening? I didn't actually know that you were on Rebel Without a Crew when I messaged you. So it was...
And I'm so that person who just like anyone says like, hey man, I have a podcast. Are you interested in talking? And I'm like, here's everything I've ever done. Like, just let's talk. Like, that is so me.
Yeah, it was actually a shock to me. Like, I was like, oh, Robert Rodriguez, what's happening? I didn't know. So that was a pleasant surprise, sir. But you ended up sending me both your movies and the entire like 5 or 7 hour cut of Rebel Without a Crew.
Yeah, so I've for those who don't know, I have a cut of Rebel Without a Crew that's just like the full series that I send to people that, you know, are interested in what we're doing and are willing to talk about it. So I send that as like a screener. So I sent you the screener of everything, and I was just like, hey man, check it out. And if you want to talk about this process and what we're doing, let's do it.
Oh yeah, man. So I binged it in like 2 days, like the whole thing. I actually really loved it. I didn't watch it when it was on. I'm sorry, guilty of that. But man, I actually really loved it. And I've now.
It's great, right?
It's
super fun.
It's super fun, especially because that book was like a Bible to me back in the day. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, who?
Yeah, I always say that. I read Rebel the same way my grandma read the Bible, like read Psalms before bed. She would sit down, like grandma would lay down in bed, and she would open the Bible and, you know, read from Proverbs and Psalms and whatever. That's the same way I was like, and Robert peed into a bottle while he edited. I'm like, comfort. Someone else is living through this shit at the same time as me, like in a different era, and put it aside. And that's what we're looking for, is that thing that comforts us into like wanting to create something. And that's what Rebel really is.
Right.
And so when we went on the show, that was a big thing, is I wanted it to feel the same way it felt to read the book. Like that was a big thing for me, was being sure that I was honest to that. That's why I didn't bring, all the other filmmakers had a director of photography that came along with them. I didn't have a DP because Robert didn't have a DP. I brought my best friend because Robert brought his best friend. Like, Daniel doesn't know what a fucking Canon C300 is. Like, Daniel doesn't know cameras. He has no idea. If I'm like, hey, we should put that 18 millimeter lens on, Daniel is like, you could have said Hubba Jubba Juba. Like, he has no idea what any of the technical stuff is.
Yeah.
But Daniel's my best friend, and he knows how to talk to me in comfort, like be comfortable in the moment and crack jokes and what I need. So that's why I brought him, because that's what Robert did. When he brought his buddy on to make El Mariachi, he was just like, I guess we're going to go make a movie together. And you look like a villain. You look like a hero. I guess this is what we're going to do. And that's what I wanted. So that's totally what we did.
No, and that's actually, you know what? You've already answered the first thing I was going to bring up about it, because after watching it, I loved the whole thing. I thought all the filmmakers were awesome. You definitely spoke to me after watching it because of the fact that you talked about working with your friends and how it was not only important to you, it kind of enhances the experience. And as a guy who's always kept it close to the cuff, that really speaks to me with who I work with and stuff. Like that really spoke to me, bringing your friends in, you know?
And not only bringing my friends, but when I cast my actors that, you know, were at that cattle call that they threw that big, 300 people were in a room and we were like, had to cast our movie in an hour. And they were like, pick your people, go. And we were just like, this is not the way it works.
Right.
I picked people that I just wanted to talk to. Like, I talked to Brittany for a few minutes and she was like a total sweetheart, a total badass, showed up with her motorcycle helmet and leather coat. And I was just like, when I wrote Maria for The Good Exorcist, that was the character that I wanted to be. And then I saw Brittany and I'm like, that's the person I want to be. I'm casting her. Like, she's got her leather coat, her motorcycle, and her motorcycle helmet. That's the baddest of badasses in this room right now. She is in my movie. And then like Avery came over and we started talking, the dude who plays Stanley. We just started talking about how crazy the process was and whatever. And I realized like, oh man, I can call this guy and he would show up to hang out tomorrow. And he literally did. He came out the next day and tried on clothes. Like, I just cast people that I thought would be fun to hang out with. So I think that's a big thing. And my cast was amazing. Like, I'm still making movies with them now. I'm hoping that once this COVID all ends, I can make movies with them again because they were that great.
They kind of became your friends, right?
They became my family. Like, I was on a call with Avery and Brittany a couple weeks ago. We did 2 weeks ago, we did a audio commentary for The Good Exorcist for Trauma. And the two of them, like, it was like we've known each other for forever. And I started to think about it. I'm like, well, we actually only hung out for that couple of weeks on Rebel, a few weeks at South by Southwest, but yet we're like family. I could call Brittany up right now. Brittany and I have a art. We're selling our art together. She has some photographs and I have some paintings that we're selling at like an art fair digitally.
That's amazing, and like, man.
That's the kind of friends you dream of having, and I got them from Rebel Crew.
I guess I should give some context here, because you're not just. It's not that you're just a filmmaker. You're a writer, director, animator. I guess we could call you a DP, and you've worked on way more stuff than I've realized. Obviously, you did animation for Kevin Smith.
I did, yeah, I did. Yeah. That was my first job I ever had. I mean, like, first real animation filmmaking job was I was working at Target at the time, and Kevin put out this like call to animators to do a Darth Vader versus, what was it? Batman versus Darth Vader. It was like from Hollywood Babylon, the podcast he did with Ralph Garman.
Yeah.
And he was like, what would it be like if Batman fought Darth Vader? And they put out like animators, call to action, send us your thing. And I sent in a video that I did on like a weekend that I had off of work. And I got second or third place. But from that, they hired a bunch of people to make cartoons for them for the Smodimations. So I started doing Smodimations, and I worked with Steve Stark and I worked with Ken Plume, and we made a bunch of cartoons together. And because I dug on horror, when TUSK started coming together, they wanted someone to animate the podcast that TUSK was coming from.
Right.
And I was like the obvious go-to guy because I like horror movies. So they were like, well, what if we let the horror guy make the TUSK cartoon? So I did that. And then I did some animation for the actual movie that got cut. And that actually led me to getting on Rebel Without a Crew, because that animation led me to Josh Roush. Josh Roush and I did a cartoon together, and that cartoon got on Al Ray Network. And that's how I met Robert.
Man, that's you know what? And now I'm realizing also, as you were talking, we have another connection. I used to write for MoviePoopshoot.com, directly hired.
Oh, nice!
Directly hired by Ken Plume. I haven't talked to Ken in about maybe 8 to 10 years. So
yeah, same.
But my column is still up.
Total sweetheart.
He's a great guy. My column is still hosted on a site called Fred. My old column from years back. But yeah, I didn't. You know Ken Plume. Okay. Connections.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
That is a
great.
total connection.
It's a total connection.
Like 7 degrees of Ken Plume.
Right. And he's still doing his podcast with Dana Snyder, isn't he? Is that still going?
Yeah, he does a podcast with Dana Snyder. He does his like a bit of a chat with Ken Plume. He does a bunch of stuff. Yeah, he's
very cool.
He's still crushing it. Yeah.
So I mean, that's crazy, man. That like succession of things that eventually led to you working with Robert Rodriguez. That's
my hero. Like literally like it was so funny because the first day we showed up to Rebel Without a Crew, Robert came out and he asked everyone, he's like, who is the one person that you would want to be mentored by? You know, and it went around the room to everyone. And I was like, man, I can't say Robert Rodriguez. Like, he's standing right there because he is the one. Like, if someone had asked me 5 years ago, who do you want to learn from? It would have been Robert, because Robert was like, I want to make those kind of grindhouse movies. He is the guy who got me into filmmaking. But then I, said Kevin Smith, and then because he's the guy who gave me my first job, like he is the guy I owe everything to.
No, I probably would have said the same thing, to be honest with you. Honestly, because of the book. That book was, like we already said, the book was so legendary to me. But also,
Bible.
I think Robert, the tone of Robert's whole career, which I feel like people have always kind of tried to, like in the early days, they tried to like push him into the more serious, and he's like, no, I'm making this. You know what I mean? Like I've always loved that about Robert. Like he's always just like, no, I'm not the guy you keep thinking I am. I'm not that guy. I'm gonna do what I want to do.
And that's what I think Alita kills. Like, love it or hate it, Alita is an amazing movie just in the fact that it takes these weird risks that no other $250 million movie is taking. They kill the dog and make Wizard of Oz references and then have eyeballs in a freaking bottle. Like, it is the weirdest.
It's super odd, man.
$250 million. I love it. It is a grindhouse, big budget movie without an ending. Like, that kills me. Like, that movie doesn't even end. Like, you're sitting there going, wait, so we just got to the beginning of Alita's story? Like, it's so good.
God, I really hope they continue it too. I don't know if that's.
I do too. I think they will. I think they will. I think Robert loves it so much. Just talking to him about it, Robert's so passionate about that I think, if nothing else, we'll get a $7,000 Alita. He'll find a way to make it.
I'd watch that. I mean, the El Rey Network just do a TV movie of the Alita, just continuing the story. I'm sure the actors would sign it.
Yes.
I remember I saw it at a press screening, and they did like that half-hour making of after the movie, and it was like mind-boggling what they went through to shoot that. With just like the fact that they had like a town that was just filled with like Truman Show cameras capturing every angle of Alita herself. It was like for dialogue scenes.
Crazy.
I was like, Jesus.
It's so good.
Yeah, like you said,
it's so good. That's my.
They poured the money into this crazy, weird thing. Like the time and money. I guess it was Cameron though. He had faith.
That's why they had Jimmy Cameron sitting there going like, "Hey, you want $7 million to make a set?" And that, like in Austin, Texas, like there was one moment where I was sitting around because my movie cost $7,000 to make.
That's The Good Exorcist we're talking about, right?
Yeah, The Good Exorcist. I was sitting there editing The Good Exorcist, and I took a director's chair out of Robert's studio, and I brought it into the Alita set, and I set up this chair with my laptop and my hard drive, and I was sitting there on this chair, editing my stupid little $7,000 movie, and I looked around, and I'm like, I'm on a $7 million set. $7 million set. It was, the scene when Alita is doing the like basketball thing around that like fountain or whatever. That's where I was sitting, right there in this beautiful, like amazing Steve Joyner set, editing my stupid little priest killing a teddy bear movie. Like,
it's
so
also too
dumb,
like,
but I loved it.
You're surrounded by this, and then all your equipment is your laptop. You know what I mean? Like,
that's
this is my editing bay on my lap. That's amazing.
I was literally just like, this is the dream. Like the dream is that you can make a feature film. Like I'm making a feature film surrounded by this genius. Like, how amazing.
Right. Now, was that actively filming, or were you just there on an off day, or were you actually allowed on set?
They had finished filming Alita at that time, but it was super hush-hush. We couldn't even put a camera in the direction of the Alita set. Like, they wouldn't even allow us to film in that area. So in The Good Exorcist, there's a scene where Father Gil is in hell, and my hope was that I could have Father Gil in hell with the Predators set and the Alita set behind him, but they wouldn't let me film in that direction. So instead, I turned the camera the other way, and he was kneeling at the spot that Bruce Willis stood for Planet Terror.
Oh
so
God.
Daniel is kneeling where Bruce Willis stood for Planet Terror and facing this like beautiful background of buildings in Robert's crazy airport of a set. Like, that's his studio, is this airport. So that's where Father Gil is.
So that
hell.
storage container is in Planet Terror, the one that that scene.
Yeah, that's in Planet Terror.
That's amazing, man. I didn't know that.
That's where Bruce Willis stood. Yeah, and all of the cars from like Planet Terror, Kill Bill, Machete, the like Mel Gibson car, like all of those vehicles are behind us while we're filming that scene, but we couldn't turn the camera to show that, so we just turned it the other way. But I know that it's back there.
Dude, you're in filmmaking mecca of the last 25 years.
It really was like Mecca. It felt like I was a part of something way bigger than me, and I just embraced it and went, fuck it. They're going to let me in. I'm going to enjoy it.
I mean, I haven't seen all the movies. I have that the show produced. I've only seen The Good Exorcist, but I've got to imagine that kind of had the most Robert Rodriguez spirit, like specifically like the actual content of the movie itself. It felt like you were channeling him a lot, you know?
I definitely understood. Like, I went really, really grindhouse with mine, and I went really comedy,
which I love, man. I love
Robert.
Yeah,
that's good. I love that people it's polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it, but the fact that we just decided to embrace the comedy versus the horror.
Yeah.
Daniel and I said when we went in, we were like, people are going to hate this because it has Exorcist in the name. Yeah, right, they're going to want horror. They're going to want horror. And we were just like, fuck them. Let's make what we want to make. Let's make each other laugh. And that's all we ever did. We only set out to make each other laugh.
Right. And
make our wives laugh. Like, there's half of the jokes in the movie are just because our wives will think they're funny. So we just went stupid and silly with it and embraced a weird exploitation that we hadn't seen. Exploiting laughs. Like, we really
totally.
just decided to.
You were, and that's speaking directly to me because I kind of lean more towards the laugh side. I love comedy horror. It's like my favorite genre. And stuff that I'm not that worried about something like that being scary. I kind of want the laughs and the crazy. And I think it brings both.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing is like, the movie is weird because a lot of times what happens is horror comedy is a weird genre because usually it's more horror than comedy.
Right.
And a lot of the times it becomes like a muddled, weird spot where... perfect example. Drag Me to Hell, I think, is one of the most perfect movies ever made.
And the reason masterpiece, dude.
It's a masterpiece. And so many people hated it. Like, that movie got panned. And the reason it got panned is because it does not take the horror serious ever. The second a jump scare is supposed to happen, instead they have an old lady gumming a chick. Then the second you think that you're lulled into like, this is just stupid, they jump scare you and they throw you for a loop. They kill a kitten in that movie.
Right.
They literally kill a kitten. You're not even supposed to kill the dog. This movie kills the cute kitten. Drag Me to Hell is a masterpiece, and it's PG-13 on top of it.
It's kind of a punch in the face on every scene has a punch directly in the face of what you're expecting. Even when I watch it now, when I've seen it 100 times. I'm always like,
exactly.
Oh, right.
That's why I love it. I'm always shocked.
Right.
My favorite scene is when dude gets blood, like she bloody noses all over the counter, and he's like, "Oh, I got it in my mouth. I got it in my mouth." That is the nastiest scene ever in the weirdest comedy
I'd
ever
argue
made.
that the gumming of the chin is... I mean, that's what grosses me out.
You could also argue that the bile pouring out of the old woman's mouth, and it's a nasty movie. It's gross.
I remember
gross.
Speaking of heroes, like if I had to make a list, Rodriguez and Raimi would probably be at the top. That we're talking about this.
Raimi's my number one.
Raimi's kind of the...
Raimi...
Yeah.
Raimi and Burton are like, they're like neck and neck,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only because Burton somehow weaseled his way into being like, he can make whatever he wants. My kids and I were just watching Frankenweenie.
Yeah.
Like for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how that movie got made. How do you convince someone, I want to make a stop motion black and white monster movie?
Right.
Like,
you're Tim Burton.
I can't get anyone to... You're Tim Burton. Tim Burton is a fucking genius.
Yeah. He can do anything. Yeah, you can do anything he wants. And also, I mean, that was like a full circle thing for his career because the original Frankenweenie was kind of his first break in a way, right? You know, like
but it's also because it's also on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I know.
It's so good.
Yeah,
so we immediately watched it after we watched Frankenweenie, the movie. We watched the short, and I sat there going, how did he get people to fund this? Every shot is beautiful, and it's like 16 millimeter, 1987 or whatever, 1985. I don't even know. But like, it's gorgeous. God, Tim Burton just hit the jackpot over and over and over.
That golden age
anyone
Burton,
who
man.
complains,
his golden age is like untouchable.
It's untouchable, but I'm still like, I feel like I might go through a now Burton phase as a man, like as an old man, and be like, maybe this new Burton is better than we give him credit for.
You know what?
I've
been hard on him in the last 20 years. I'll admit.
I have too, but I think maybe Big Fish is great.
Big Fish is great. I can't say I'm a fan of the Alice in Wonderland or like the Willy Wonka. I'm not. I want to be.
Have you seen? I want to be too. Have you seen Big Eyes and have you seen
I like
Dumbo?
Big Eyes.
So I started Big Eyes and I have turned it off 3 times. And this is not a thing against Burton.
Right.
I just get bored by very somber movies.
Okay.
And that is a somber ass movie.
It is.
That movie just meanders.
It feels like he made it to get it out of his system. Like he needed a relaxing thing.
Yeah, and I think if I'm in the right mood, I have a glass of wine and I just got done painting and I sit down and I watch Big Eyes, I might be in tears. Like, I just have to be in the right mood.
Right.
And that's the same with, I feel like Dumbo might be the same way. That if I watch it with my kids, me and my sons might be crying, going like, oh, our moms. Like, we'll find the mood. I think Tim Burton he knows he's got to find the mood in the time.
Yeah. I will say, I think Dumbo is a beautiful movie. And I kind of love that it's kind of if you watch the whole thing, the theme is like a middle finger to Disney itself, which only he could probably get away with on a movie with that high of a budget in a remake.
And OG Dumbo was kind of a fuck you to cartoon movies in and of itself. So maybe he was like on point. I still think Ed Wood might be the most masterpieces of masterpieces.
I would say that's
ever.
his masterpiece. Yes. I agree.
Ed Wood is seriously, oh my God, for filmmakers, if you haven't cried watching Ed Wood, you fucked up. Like, that movie
seriously,
is just a masterpiece.
Yeah, I feel like that's the movie when I talk, or when I listen to filmmakers talk, that's the one of his that gets mentioned. That's the one that keeps getting brought up. Like, I feel like it's gotten more prestige as time has gone. To the point where now
I think that's Tim Burton though. He knows how to make something that gets prestige as it goes on. Like when Batman Returns came out, I remember everyone being like, "This is so fucking weird. This is not a Batman movie."
Yeah,
it is.
It is. It's super
now.
Weird.
It's like the amount of people who say that that's their favorite Batman movie though blows me away. It happens all the time where I'm like, what's your favorite Batman movie? And they're like, oh man, I love Returns.
That's probably my favorite Batman movie, honestly. I'm telling you right now.
Same.
Yeah.
If I could only watch one Batman movie ever again, it would be Returns. And
it's like, and it's so Tim Burton. It's like, I agree with somebody who's like, dude, that's not a Batman movie. That's a Tim Burton movie. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like, I like agree that there definitely is more Batman-y takes out there. You know what I mean? But I like the movie itself. It's like, I have friends who are huge Spider-Man fans and they don't like Raimi's Spider-Man movies. And I'm like, I love them. But they're like, they're not accurate to what I think Spider-Man is. And I was like, I don't really care about that.
No,
like, I don't care about that part. I care about Raimi, man. You know,
I don't care about with Returns. I don't care about Batman. I don't care about Penguin. I don't care about Catwoman. What I care about is the overall arcing vibe of that movie. It's just so perfect. And that's why, like, Raimi's Spider-Man 2,
Spider-Man
that movie
2
is a masterpiece.
Dude, you're speaking my language here. Stop it. Did you read my mind, man?
Watching Raimi know how to just make everyone put forth a performance. Like, I love watching everyone in that movie.
2 is kind of him, as is, I would say, Drag Me to Hell. It's like the last 2 times I would say Raimi was firing on all 11 cylinders. Was Drag Me to Hell and Spider-Man 2, right? I mean, I can't think of... I mean, he's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not insulting everything else. I'm just saying, like, firing on everything that makes him great. Those two movies...
That's best Raimi. That's best Raimi.
Outside of Evil Dead. Outside of Evil Dead or something like that. You know what I mean?
Man, I don't know. If I had to choose, I'm being bold, and I have said this before, but I would pick Drag Me to Hell over an Evil Dead any day. I love me some Drag Me to Hell. Oh, yes. I'm a big Drag Me to Hell fan. There's just something
It is kind of Evil Dead 4-ish.
It is Evil Dead 4.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she's channeling Bruce Campbell to the furthest extent. She's getting gummed by an old woman. Like, it is so Evil Dead 4.
Yeah, he puts her through similar hell as he put Bruce through. Definitely.
I love Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
And but I'm a big proponent of A Simple Plan. I think that story is amazing. And I think Billy Bob is just so fun to watch in the convoluted simpleton mentality.
Yeah.
That is a character I've never seen before. Someone who obviously understands that he's simple-minded and is trying to figure out the best route. That is such an unsung hero. It's
kind of amazing that Billy Bob has 2 great idiot savant performances. You know, like he's because Sling Blade. I'm not saying that it's comparable to Sling Blade, but it is that feeling of like they kind of know they know who they are, but they aren't smart enough to know other things that are just as simple. You know.
Right. I love Sling Blade to death. I think that movie's amazing, but I think there's something about A Simple Plan where that guy is so human. There's something so human about the guy who is an idiot, but also trying to figure out what he should be doing. Because that idea of like finding the bag of money is something we all talk about, like winning the lottery, I love that. Yeah. And then you throw in a simpleton who's in the mix of it all, but he's not such a simpleton that he's not Sling Blade. He's not that. He's like trying to figure. I love it. I love it so much.
Do you think that movie is not talked about enough when Raimi comes up? Because I do. I feel like
100%.
It's not mentioned.
Both of those 2 movies.
And which one?
The Gift, which is another Sam Raimi movie that is amazing.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Daniel just messaged me about Raimi's Western.
Dude. It's my favorite Western. I love it. I love
it's
that
so
movie.
Good.
It's so good. Like, I kind of want people to rewatch it because I feel like it just doesn't have eyes anymore. Either everyone grew up and forgot about watching on TBS, or kids don't know about it or something. But it's the most exciting Western ever made.
But the problem is it's so like tongue-in-cheek smart.
that
people get sort of it is just Western enough to be a Western and just punk rock weird enough to be punk rock weird. So the 2 never quite combine. Like, you have grandpas fighting young kids over why this movie is good. Right. And that's the problem with it.
It's also as we've said, it's really weird. Like Sharon Stone
It's so
in that role, like the way that came about was like she could do anything she wanted at the time, and she loved Army of Darkness so much she chose Raimi for it. Like and then it produced that movie, which I think if you look at the poster, the artwork, and everything, you're not expecting the movie that is going in, right? I never was.
I think that, and the trailer as well. There's so many elements of that movie that don't work to what it becomes,
right?
And what it becomes is something so awesome, which is just like Batman Returns,
right?
Which Batman Returns is a movie that people didn't expect, like a sexy woman, like being sexy around Danny DeVito, like that throws us all for a loop.
Okay, and don't downplay. It's not just Danny DeVito here. It's like Danny DeVito times 1,000 disgusting Danny DeVito, right?
Biting a man on the face,
right?
Literally biting a man on the face. That's my favorite scene of the movie. Is you're at least my nose is gushing blood. What an amazing scene! Oh,
so good.
God.
Or I'm a big fan of. Don't you think that's a little? And then he shoots him. No, it's a lot. You know? So good, man. Oh, so good. And to put that on, to put that in it back then, even to put something that disgusting in a major Hollywood motion picture,
yes,
where you have something like you said, the contrast of sexy to absolutely repulsive.
And be like, this is PG-13, motherfucker. Like, I just can't believe that movie got made. I can't believe it got made.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you said, you need power to do something that weird. Or you need to have money and do something that weird. Let me rephrase that. Because you can do it with no money.
So you got to be so in the right place and smart and lucky the way Tim Burton was. And that's why I respect the hell out of Tim Burton. But I respect the hell out of Sam Raimi, and those are the guys that have inspired me to just take risks and do what I do to my fullest extent. When I made Grey Woods, I was just like, fuck it. We're gonna make the movie we make, and
now
let's just do it. Like,
so
who cares what people say?
I'm getting the sense that like kind of Burton and Raimi and Rodriguez kind of inspired The Good Exorcist. Is there other filmmakers you name when we're talking about Grey Woods plot?
I mean, Kevin Smith, because I worked on TUSK, and before working on TUSK, I was like, I had this idea years ago. Like, the first movie I wanted to make was a movie about a guy who turns another guy into a Spider-Man because he wants to. I like the idea of a Frankenstein monster who wants to become Frankenstein.
Right.
That's a movie I've never seen before.
Right.
Like, there's a movie called Terror is a Man, where a guy gets turned into like a cat monster.
Terrorism Man? Is that what you just said?
Terror is a man.
Oh, is like, man. Terror is a man.
Yeah, is a man.
Yeah.
Terror is a man is like a really great superhero, though. Terror is a man.
Terror is a man. It's a lot. It's a hefty subject.
Terror doesn't. Donnie has that covered. Let's be honest.
Right.
Terror is a Man is like a movie based on the it's like that Isle of Dr. Moreau story. The people making animal creatures. And I love that. I love the people being turned into animal monsters. And when I saw when I got the script for TUSK, because I was working on it, I was like, wow, this is like a great idea.
Right.
But I like the idea of the monster wanting to become the monster. Yeah. And that never happens in TUSK. He never, like, Justin Long doesn't want to be TUSK. And so
TUSK is invariably sadder in its own way, in a different way. It's like an imprisoned
the opposite
man.
Way. Yeah. And Frankenstein is the same way. Frankenstein doesn't want to be alive. Like, when you watch Frankenstein, he is a tortured soul who is forced to come back. Like, I always hated that. I hated that the person who becomes the monster doesn't get being the monster. Even in Island of Dr. Moreau,
you want them to embrace their situation, basically, is what you're saying.
I wanted them to embrace the situation. So I had this idea years ago of someone becoming a Spider-Man. And that was sort of the idea. And as we started filming, that idea evolved into the dog man that is Greywood's plot.
Yeah.
But like, I really, really wanted this idea of the man who wanted to become the monster. And so when I started writing Greywood's plot, we really, pushed to make that come to fruition. This idea of like the monster man who wants to become Frankenstein, the Frankenstein monster becoming Frankenstein's monster.
Right. I think you did. I think you achieved that, because by the end, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but you definitely achieved that. Like, it has a different feel than Tusk.
I'm okay. I'm going to say I'm okay spoiling it, because you really don't get it until you watch
see it. You gotta watch
so
it.
Fucking weird, because like everyone starts watching it and you get into the movie and you just start watching these friends be friends. And that was a big thing. Like, when I write a script, I always write down 5 words at the beginning. Like, I sit down and I write 5 words so that anytime I get off track, I can come back to those words and be inspired again. And word number 1 was friendship. So when you watch the movie, you'll always be brought back to the friendship of it all.
Right.
Whether that friendship is between Miles and Dom or something else, well, that's you'll have to wait and see that. Right.
No, when I finished it, I thought to myself, it made me feel, how can I say this without, I love Tusk. Let me say that first. I love Tusk. I'm a big fan of Tusk. But your movie kind of felt like if Tusk was serious, even though it's got funny moments, but like, Tusk to me, it always plays, as I think is intentional. It always plays as though we're watching something insane that's supposed to be funny, whereas yours to me actually played like a man's descent into the madness of accepting being a dog. You know what I mean? Like, I felt different about both movies.
Because because it's weird, because mine is funnier through it. Like, at the beginning, it starts out funnier and you get more chuckles early on, whereas Tusk is kind of serious early on, and you start to find these characters. Yeah. And then mine takes a weird twist and like really hits you hard.
Right.
But there's something about, for me, it was that's part of what it was. I really wanted to hit people with a bat in the back of the head, like almost literally. And that was a big part of it. Like, we when we filmed that, we were like, okay, this is where the movie changes. Right. And we need to make sure that the audience understands we're about to go very, very different from what you thought you were going to see at this point.
Well, you're playing with a very similar setup as he was. But let me say this. When I saw Tusk in theaters, right, I laughed my ass off at the end. Not because I thought it was bad, but I think the ending of Tusk is actually extremely funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I get why it's supposed to be sad, but it's hilarious. Totally. I did not laugh at the ending of Greywood's plot.
Greywood's is literally the opposite.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Setting you up to laugh. I totally get it. We actually intentionally went opposite, but we also, that's the movie we wanted to make 20 years ago. Like, that's not something
I didn't think you were copying.
This is the idea we had. Yeah, and I don't think people think we are. I think people go, oh shit, he had something he needed to say. And Kevin says all the time, if you think you can do it your way, do it your way. If you want to record a podcast, do a podcast. If you want to make a movie that you think you can make better than me, make that movie. It's not better or worse. It's just my version. And that my version of this monster story was very different than Island of Dr. Moreau, different than Tusk, different than The Fly. I had a different story to tell, and I had to tell it. So I did it as fast as I could with no budget. That's the best part. Like, when you look at the budgets of all of the other movies, and they're like, Tusk was $2 million, The Fly was $20 million, whatever it was. My movie was, I probably spent most of my money on booze. Legitimately
pizza,
Jack
right?
Daniels.
Yeah.
Booze, I'm not even kidding, booze and pizza.
It's always the food, literally man. It's always the food.
It was the food and the booze.
Yeah.
So, I had 3 passionate friends. Daniel, Nathan Strauss and Keith Radical, and those guys came along with me for the ride, and we just made a movie together. That was what we wanted to do, and we did it.
If you're okay with talking a little spoilers, the one thing I took away from it is exactly what you're saying is all the other movies you mentioned, I always feel like there's an element of please kill me. End this at the end. And I didn't feel
that's my favorite part is
I didn't get that from your movie. You know what I mean?
No, even the dude who dies, he looks at the other dude, the dog man, and he goes, "So what do we do now?" Like that's my favorite part. Like Keith looks at me, Miles looks at Dom, and he just goes, "So what do we do now?" And then he eats him, and you're just like, "Oh yeah, it isn't that. No one is ever going, just kill me. Just kill me." Like, that's not the way human nature works. Like, that's the ultimate bad. Yes, if you're the woman who's been trapped on the alien ship, like, that, to me, that's the ultimate kill me, is Aliens. When she's, like, trapped and she's like, kill me.
Right.
Like, yes, okay, then kill me. But the dude who's like, you're my best friend. I get that you're a dog boy. Just... what do we do? Are you going to kill me, or are we going to move on? Are we going to still be friends?
There's a movie it reminded me of, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it reminded me a little bit of My Boyfriend's Back. I don't know if you ever.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that movie.
Because there's the wry wit of that movie where there was like he's talking to his friend, and the dream he has with his girlfriend. Both times are just like, just take a little bit. You know what I mean? They like accept that he's a zombie, and they were just like, go ahead. Is this what we're doing? I love you. Go ahead. Just do it. That's what that moment kind of reminded me of. I love
that.
Yeah.
That's totally right. Yeah. That is totally on point. Like this idea of just, come on.
Yeah,
what are we doing?
Like, I see what's happened here. You're my best bud. Just, I accept. You got to do what you got to do, man.
I think there is this thing of like modern movies go so like placating to the audience because the audience understands what's happening all the time. So they're either like you're in or you're out. Right. But movies like My Boyfriend's Dead in the 90s, you were just like they still understood. There's this,
it's a spoof movie too, but I mean it
is. And my movie's kind of, the Great Woods plot is kind of a spoof.
It made me feel like there was actual like darkness, I think, at the end of that movie where it's not just I didn't get the spoof feeling from it, if that's what I'm trying to say,
Yeah, but there's also like when you watch something like a 90s comedy like Tommy Boy, there's a spoof element. It's a comedy and it's stupid, but there's also like a serious friend movie in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I miss that. I miss people being willing to make a stupid comedy and also a really serious buddy comedy. Like Tommy Boy is the epitome of comedy to me because that movie was
man, we need to hang out if you're ever in town, dude. Jesus, we love all the same stuff, man.
I know, right?
Yeah, seriously. No, I feel like if I could point to modern stuff that maybe hits that would be like Edgar Wright, maybe as far as
totally,
like that, like like the buddy. It's not just a joke that they're friends. The friendship is real, and you feel that.
And that's the thing. Like we really, with both The Good Exorcist and Greywood's plot, Daniel and I were both like, well, what does Shaun of the Dead do? What does Edgar Wright do? But what would he do with $7,000? Like with nothing? Like what would Edgar Wright do if he had nothing and knew he was going to make garbage? Because that's the problem is with $7,000, you're not making a real movie. With nothing, you're not making a real movie. What you're making is something that could maybe play to a handful of people. And they might dig it.
They have to be able to go on the ride of low budget or else it's...
Exactly.
It's not for
they
them.
have to go on the ride.
And I think even El Mariachi kind of plays with that. Like, I know people who don't like El Mariachi.
Oh, my God. I honestly, if someone told me El Mariachi cost $1 million, I'd be like, this is garbage. But when you say what the budget is, you're like, okay, I'm in for what it is.
But what
and
you're
we've
saying...
never even...
What you're saying, though, he knew in the book, he even talks like to him, he was making a movie that was supposed to be released on VHS in the Mexican video market.
Mexican market.
He wasn't trying to make an art film, and it turned into that. They tried to make it that, and it wasn't that. He was like, I'm making a garbage action movie.
But the other thing is, you have to remember the movie when it came out, no one saw it. It wasn't until Desperado that people really knew Robert Rodriguez, and even Desperado got like, you know, it would have got a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I know.
Like we live in a different world than that was. Like all you had to do was get a few important people involved.
Right.
The Thing, which I think might be the only flawless movie. I think The Thing, every frame of that movie is perfect.
Yeah.
Got panned by critics. Critics
Carpenter got panned
The Thing
almost his whole career. And
his whole career
has been like, and now he's a legend, you know?
Of course.
We were wrong.
Carpenter hasn't made a movie that people are like, this is shit. Oh, wait, no, this is genius. Like, that is Carpenter's career.
Right.
And, like, I honestly think The Thing might be the only movie ever made that there is not a minute that is wasted. There is not a shot that is boring. There is not a frame that should be cut.
Right.
The score is flawless. Yet, that movie got, like, it would have a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes if it came out today. Like, that's insane to me.
Do you also think that I'm a firm believer in that movies need 10 years or more?
Yeah, of course.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
but that's why
I think when we look at movies now, it's too quick of a snap judgment, you know?
And no budget filmmakers are the first to go, okay, I got to move on. I'm not even gonna talk about this movie. I'm the opposite. I'm like, I'll be talking about The Good Exorcist 20 years from now and telling you all how I made a movie that is this fucking stupid for $7,000 and you should all watch it. But that's the thing is, you have to, if you don't love your thing you made, no one's gonna love it. So you have to keep I mean, Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 are what? 7 years apart? Like, it's not like Sam Raimi didn't make Evil Dead, and then suddenly the next day he was making Evil Dead 2. He didn't make Evil Dead 2, and then the next day he was making Army of Darkness. It takes time. Like, you have to put the effort, and you have to really love what you made. And I think that's what happened with with Evil Dead, and I think that's what happens with a lot of these filmmakers who make it, is Tim Burton worked for Disney. He got like so many different people involved. He made 2 shitty features before he made Pee-wee's Big Adventure that you've never seen. I
might have watched one of them a long time ago, but they're not available.
I watched Tarantino's first feature. Tarantino made this feature called like a birthday. It was like my birthday or something like that.
Something like that.
Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad.
And then he made Reservoir Dogs. Right, yeah.
One of the best movies ever written, like just a masterpiece of dialogue. Like, you have to believe in yourself or no one's going to believe in you.
Right. Well, that's a good thing I'd love to talk to you about is, what do you think? Now, we're in COVID, so not right now. Before this all happened, what do you think about indie filmmaking now? Because the one thing that struck me watching Rebel Without a Crew was Robert, God love him, he talked about it like it's still somewhat the same. You know what I mean? When he was talking to you guys on camera and he talked about like, I made a movie for $7,000. You guys are going to do it. And even then in my brain, I'm like, $7,000 isn't what $7,000 was when you made El Mariachi. You know what I mean? Like, part of that part of my brain kind of went off. You know what I mean? And also, like, the industry isn't exactly what the industry was when you made El Mariachi. I'm not saying he's wrong, but you get what I'm getting at? It's a different...
Oh, yeah, I totally get it.
Money's different. The world is different. It's all different. Yeah.
The way people watch movies is different.
Exactly.
Like, and that's the thing is, like, it's all about shifting to the time. So I've said this before, like, Robert did what he did. Kevin did what he did. Like, Kevin Smith made his movie for like $20,000 on credit cards.
Yeah.
But if you made a movie about people sitting in a, convenience store now talking about the things that they talk about in Clerks, that movie would be fucking offensive. Like, no one wants to see Clerks now.
Let me throw this out to you, too.
No one wants to
It wouldn't just be the content. It would be the fact that capturing image isn't impressive. And I can shoot, if I had the location, I could shoot Clerks myself and no one would care. No one would want it.
Right.
That's not. I love Clerks. Not an insult, but like the actual capturing of image and like shooting is not impressive. So Clerks might have just been Kevin Smith as one of us putting it on YouTube if he made it 30 years later. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But that's the thing. Maybe there is a way to put it up on YouTube and become what Kevin is now.
Right.
In that way. But you have to always be adapting. The road is completely a different road travel than it ever was. Like the Duplass brothers did their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is always finding their different way. And someone will always be on the forefront. Like there will always be, it could be you. It could be anyone. Like someone could come up with the thing that people are jiving with in that moment.
Right.
But you just have to find that.
Quibi tried.
You don't but you don't know you have it when you even have it. Here's the thing. I guarantee you there were 100 other Quentin Tarantino's and Robert Rodriguez's and Kevin Smith's who are fucking not what they are.
Yeah, right.
There were other people there was a guy who spent $20,000 on credit cards when Kevin spent $20,000 on credit cards, who is still paying them off now. Because it's just, that's the way reality works. Like we only look at the glory stories. We don't look at the shitty story.
Right. And I feel like as a filmmaker, you know a lot of those, right?
Yeah, but that's not to say you shouldn't go for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you should always be trying and just be smart about it and find your path. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like I'm looking at the Roger Cormans and I'm looking at the, Duplass brothers, the people producing shit and taking like educated risks. Like I like the educated risk because it doesn't, you're never going to really fail if you go, I'll throw a little money at this idea.
Right.
And when it fails, you go, well, I can make that up over here. Like that sort of thing is really big. But like, yeah, Kevin was the one that took the big risk and, succeeded. And Robert, he's Robert. He's one of a kind. He went balls to the wall and he knew what he was doing and said, fuck it. And Robert's had Alita did what it did. And the money is where it was what it was. And watching Grindhouse, I think Planet Terror is one of the best movies ever made. But
oh my God, yeah. I mean, I feel like Alita is the first like Hollywood movie he's made. Don't you think? I mean, like, it's,
but yeah. But like, I mean, Sin City and
Sin City. You're right.
Yeah, but Planet Terror cost a ton, and they threw a bunch of money at that movie, and it bombed in the theaters. Both of those Grindhouse movies bombed. I remember watching the Grindhouse movies together and thinking they were garbage the first time I saw them.
Seriously?
I was like, this is, oh my God. It was a midnight showing on Halloween, like 2014 or whatever. I was like, oh my God, why did they do this? Like, this is so stupid and silly.
Can I ask how old are you? How old are you? I'm just curious. You don't have to.
I'm 35. I'm 35, but I was
okay. I'm older than you. All right. I didn't know that. I figured I was younger.
I'm 35. I was what, 25 at the time, and I remember seeing not Planet Terror, the other one, Death Proof,
yeah,
and being like, what the fuck is Tarantino thinking? it's women talking for a movie.
Yeah.
Now it might be my favorite Tarantino movie.
I know.
I think it's genius.
I kind of love Death Proof, but I'm afraid to say it because most people hate it still so much.
I love it. I love it so much.
Death
I think
Proof,
it's genius.
Yeah.
I think that and Hateful Eight are his like masterpieces. Oh, they're so good.
I know. I Hateful Eight, it went right up my list, and a lot of people still say they can't even stand to watch it, and I'm like,
oh, I've watched it 6 times. I think that puking blood scene might be my favorite scene in movie history. I love that scene so much.
So Hateful Eight is your number one Tarantino. What you're saying is that your favorite?
Man, that is a tough question.
Tough question.
That is a tough question. My favorite Tarantino?
Yeah.
My favorite Tarantino. Oof.
I was just gonna say
that's so tough.
More on point. What's if you had to choose, what's your favorite Rodriguez?
Ooh, man, I had this conversation a lot while we were filming. I think so. I would have said 5 years ago, I would have said Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I love that movie so much. But then I fell in love with Desperado afterwards.
That's mine.
I think that Desperado is the most sincere, young, smart, doing whatever the fuck he wants. Rodriguez, like that is Rodriguez at his epitome.
It's like pulp. It's like everything that is him.
It's pulp. It's so pulp without trying. I think the problem is with like Rodriguez, I love every movie, and I'm a huge Machete fan. My dream project is Machete the animated series. I would love to direct.
Has that been talked about? Series. Has that been an actual...
talked to Robert about.
Oh, you talked to Robert about it. Okay.
I want this to happen so bad, but it's, with legal things and whatever. Oh, it's a mess. But I would love to be a part of Machete the animated series. Robert, if you ever do it, call me, man. I'm here for Machete the animated series.
Thank you for assuming Robert Rodriguez would listen to this podcast.
He 100% would. If I put this out, I'm going to add him. Robert, listen to this show and come on, let's do this.
Please.
But man, I love Desperado so much. Desperado is
it wasn't when I was a younger man, it was From Dusk Till Dawn. I'll be honest. When I was a younger man.
Same. I'm not even a younger man. 2 years ago, I would have said Dusk Till Dawn. But now, Desperado has this sincerity behind it.
Yeah, there's something about it. Also, it kind of feels like, I mean, it is. It's El Mariachi if the guy had money. Right? I mean, it's El Mariachi with a budget. That's what it is. And it's also with his experience along the way. He already bled at that point. You know what I mean? He bled for the movie he made before it, and now he can make the movie with money.
And From Dusk Till Dawn has that money behind it too, but it has that like Tarantino, it has that amazing cast, like everything that is involved. It's like, okay, you were set up for success. Desperado has this weird like you're set up for failure. It's his like sophomore slump, and yet it succeeds so hard.
I still say the horror community should have embraced Seth Gecko as a bigger character.
I agree. Yes.
Like, 100%. like not maybe on the level they've embraced Ash Williams, but like why doesn't Seth Gecko get any love?
Gecko become that? Yeah. I think that's true. He totally should.
Yeah. I don't know why. Like he's not on I don't see like when I go to a horror convention, there should be t-shirts. It's like it's my favorite George Clooney character. Like you never hear about it.
Daniel and I were just talking about that. How he is like when someone says Clooney, that's what I see.
But that's not what most people see.
Of course not.
I guess they would see ER.
They see sexy Clooney. I don't know. Just they don't see Clooney with the weird haircut and like tattoos and talking to his odd brother.
I guess some people would see Coen Brothers movies, which is also fine. I'm not saying that's that bad. That's
fine, but he's still even in that he's like somehow sexier. There's something about that like that Rodriguez taking Clooney and just making him a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, he's weird, and he's also like a dirty crime slime ball and everything. You know what I mean? It's got. I guess that's a Tarantino.
He burns a man alive in the first like 20 minutes of the movie. So instantly you're like, okay, this isn't the Clooney I know and love. This is the Clooney I'm gonna love. I'm gonna love this Clooney.
Maybe I have to say, maybe I never loved Clooney normally. Like if that's the Clooney I know and love, you know what I mean? And isn't that's how Tusk ended up with Michael Parks, right? You ever hear that story? How like Kevin was watching From Dusk Till Dawn, and then it gave him the idea for Michael Parks. Yeah,
plays in that movie too. Parks is amazing. Parks is amazing in everything he does. Parks in Kill Bill 2 is probably my favorite Parks performance.
It's pretty amazing, and the fact that
his Esteban is so good.
That's a good question I had for you. Character actors. Your next movie is happening. You can pick one legendary character actor to put in there. Who is it? Mine would be Michael Ironside.
Like
if I had to pick.
Alive. Michael Ironside is a good choice.
Let's stay alive or dead makes it insane. Go with alive.
Hard?
Yeah.
You know who I would love to work with? Jake Busey. I think Jake Busey. I'm a big Starship Trooper fan.
Hell yeah,
and
man!
Jake Busey and Starship Troopers like slays.
I'm a big Frighteners fan too.
Like I don't know if he's a character actor. Yeah, and Frighteners. I was just gonna say, and Frighteners. Like I don't know if Jake Busey is really a character actor as much as he is just Jake Busey, but I think I could get a really great performance out of Jake Busey.
He's not ever boring to watch.
He's never boring to watch.
It's like, right? I love the movie Contact, and it's not the type of movie that Jake Busey should be on screen for, but when he is, you're like, what's this guy doing here? He looks like an alien.
What's he doing?
Is he the alien? Right. It's like a dramatic movie, and all of a sudden, whoa.
I think Jake Busey would be so fun to work with.
Yeah.
And then I could get like Gary Busey stories out of him while we're hanging out on lunch. Like, I think Jake Busey would be so fun.
That's a great answer. I was not expecting that. Yeah. That's such a good answer, man. Hey, you know what? I mean, that's not out of the question, right? You know,
it's not. No, man. That's the thing. Like, whenever someone asks me a question, my first response is always like, what's plausible? What could I actually shoot for? Like, I could shoot for the moon and be like, I want George Clooney in my movie. That's never going to happen. But Jake Busey, he might show up and be like, hey, man, I heard you talk about me on a podcast one time, and I really, really dug Greywood's plot. So
if Rob Rodriguez and Jake Busey listen to my podcast, I'll be able to die a happy man. So thank you for assuming that.
If Jake Busey like sends me a tweet and he's just like, dude, I heard you say you wanted to see me in a movie, that would be the best day of my life.
Yeah, when COVID's over, tell me where to fly, man. I'm there, you know, like that's so cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything like you're making something now, right? It's Scumbag?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that at all? We don't have to if you don't want to.
I'm working on Scumbag right now, which is a movie. I was on Rebel Without a Crew, and I remember sitting there talking to Daniel, and we were talking about, like, Rebel Without a Crew, this concept of Rebel Without a Crew. What does it mean? And for me, it always was bullshit, because I went like, okay, well, Rebel Without a Crew would be me by myself. Like, someone without a crew is someone alone.
Right.
Because the second that Daniel shows up, and Avery shows up, and Brittany shows up, I have a crew, because these people are so passionate, they become a crew. Like, I have never not had a crew.
Right.
All you have to do is care enough to tell them, grab the microphone, I'm not going to stop you. And really passionate people grab the microphone and don't let go. Like, it's crazy. Right. Brittany, at one point, our boom pole, we had like a boom pole that we put our shotgun mic on, it broke, and like it just wouldn't work. And I was like, I don't know, what do we do? And Brittany was like, oh, let's try this. And we taped the boom mic to a C-stand, like the top of a C-stand, and she was holding this metal pipe over her head. That thing weighed like 25 pounds, and she held it like over her head for 20 minutes.
Right.
Like, that is so uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, now I have a crew. That's bullshit. Like, Rebel Without a Crew goes out the window the second someone holds 25 pounds over their head for 20 minutes.
Right.
So in my head, I was like, okay, I gotta break that. So I've been making a movie by myself in my basement, or attempting to. And then I've done a bunch of other like side short films and stuff with my kids. And so, I'm trying to do all of these different things during COVID, because you can't stop or you die. So that's one of the projects. Me and Max are working on this other project right now, and we just did a scene today. We filmed a scene today for this short film competition. That is, my 7-year-old came in and like went all out on his performance. It's so sweet and so funny, and I can't wait to share it with everyone, because I was sitting there directing him today, and I'm like, go big. Like, this is your line. Go big. And then he just like went all in. I'm like, oh my God, people are going to love this. But so I'm working on Scumbag, which is a movie I'm making by myself, and it's slowly but surely coming together. I don't want it to feel like a COVID movie, though. That's the big thing, is like I don't want to feel forced because of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So
you don't. It's not filmed on Zoom, so right.
It's not filmed. It's not,
nothing wrong with that,
movie.
but I'm just saying.
Did you see Host?
No, I haven't. It's on my
so
list.
Good.
Mm-hmm. I've heard.
Watch it tomorrow. It's so good.
It's really good.
It is. Oh my God, I wanted to hate it, and I loved it. I loved it so much.
And wasn't it like number 3 in the country at one point for like because no movies are being shown? Yeah,
no movies are being shown, and that movie should have sucked, and it's so good. It is. Shudder has. It's the best movie I've seen in the past. Like, I don't even know. Like, I went and saw The Lighthouse.
Have not seen it.
Before COVID hit, The Lighthouse hit theaters. I went, hated it. I saw The Lighthouse and I was like, what a convoluted, like, pretentious pile of shit. It's my favorite movie now. This is why, like, when someone shits on my movie, I'm always like, in 7 years they're gonna think love it's the best movie ever. Yeah.
That's happened to me so many times in my life where I've been like, fuck this, and then all of a sudden it's in top 5. You know what I mean? Big Lebowski.
The Shining was the Big Lebowski.
I hated the Big Lebowski.
I watched the Big Lebowski on Comedy Central. That movie, they tore it apart. I remember watching it on Comedy Central, and I'm like, this movie makes no sense. This is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. Now it's a masterpiece. Like, I love the Big Lebowski.
Right,
One of the best movies ever made.
I saw it in theaters, and I was mad I spent money on it. And then, 20 years later, I'm like, it's like a staple of. I could watch it 20 times a year.
That was me with The Lighthouse. I watched The Lighthouse, walked out of the theater. I was so mad. I'm like, these fuckers made a 4:3 movie, black and white. They think they're so smart. You sons of bitches. Went home. Movie came out on VOD, and I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll rent it. I'll watch it one more time. I'll give it a chance. I rented it, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll buy it. I'll give it. I watched it like 20 times. I watched it so many times. I'll probably watch it tonight.
All right, honestly, all right. I'm gonna watch it. I promise. I'll watch it. I should have by now. I haven't. If I hate it, I'll let you know.
Weirdest. It's such artsy fartsy bullshit. But there's something about two white men getting drunk and bickering that just hits home for me.
White men in like pea coats dressed like sea captains. I mean, you want to see that, right?
But it's so gross. I think the thing that threw me off was I didn't expect a movie to be that gross.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it and it was just like, oh, you're just nasty. You're just nasty boys. And now I'm like, oh, yes, nasty boys. It's like the Jackass of the modern era. You have to get artsy fartsy to be the Jackass now.
I think almost you could look back at Jackass and call it artsy fartsy now. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, right?
Because I look back on it now and I look at it and I'm like, this is the best documentary about male bonding that will ever exist, and it totally doesn't know it is. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. No, dude, you're so on. It's of its era in a way.
It's not just the stunts. That's what I'm saying. There's something else there.
No, the stunts are the part that you don't really care about. It's the like weird male bonding of the era where you're just like, man, what a simple time where you could just slap another guy. And that was comedy.
That was comedy. Like all of you laughing at one of your friends getting covered in shit. It's not the fact that he got covered in shit. It's that it brought you all together and you're doing it and it's a memory. There's something about that.
You know what? I heard that they were shooting another Jackass and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the most emo movie ever made. Because it has to be in this era right now. The new Jackass, it's got to be 4 guys in COVID masks who can't be around each other, who are literally sitting around going like, remember when we did this? And every white man in the United States is going to cry going, remember when we did this?
Dude, it's such a formative time in my life. I don't know about
they're going to win an Oscar. Oh my God, yes.
Also, like
as a filmmaker, as an artist, like right now, it is that moment where we all are just going, what the fuck are we doing? And why are we doing it?
Also, like in a time where, and let's be honest, where death is so prevalent in our discussion and our lives, it's on the news, we have counters. Will Jackass hit the same? People putting themselves in danger for entertainment. You know what I mean? Like, in a time when we're constantly talking about a plague that's killing killing people all across the globe. It's like it's a hard play there, man. It actually affects filmmaking in general, outside of just the filming itself, right? Like,
well, that's the funny thing. Like, talking to people about Borat 2, we watched Borat 1, and Borat 1, when you watch it, it's literally a guy just being an asshole. And then Borat 2 is like a movie about a father and daughter. Yeah. And it hits home because, like, a lot of us are sitting there going, like, we want that emotional resonance. Mm-hmm. So when someone goes, man, I loved Borat 2, you're like, why? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's not because of the Giuliani thing or the other stuff. It's this weird, like, emotional resonance the movie actually played.
Yeah, I think
that's what we wanted. We actually wanted that. So maybe that movie won't stand the test of time the way Borat 1 did, but it hit in a way now that we really needed.
No, I would say, I said my one friend watched it and they said, it was fine. They wanted more of the gotcha stuff. And I was like, you know what, though? I was like, remove that part of your brain. And I was like, Borat 2, I love Borat 1, but Borat 2 is actually kind of a good comedy movie with heart.
Yeah, it's just a good comedy movie.
I know everyone wants the gotcha stuff.
It's more like Tommy Boy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's more like Tommy Boy than it is like Borat 1. Like, we wanted just a good comedy, and that's what it is.
Yeah, but I think people need to watch it again to get that part of it. They're waiting for the Who is America aspect of it. You know what I mean? When when he was doing Who is America, that's what that was. Where I was like, it's obvious to me throughout his career that he wants to do narrative comedies. Like, total, you know what I mean? Like, it's obvious, and obviously the other ones that he didn't pay out. Obviously, Borat did. Like the live stuff with the real interviews and everything. But I think
it's the same thing that happened with Team America. When Team America dropped, I remember people just being like, "Oh, this is weird. Like, it's so story driven and like odd, and the jokes are really big at some points, but they're small at others, and it was a weird, convoluted mess." And it is, but
it totally
did we get it.
There will never be a better Michael Bay, Jerry Bruckheimer parody ever than that movie.
Of course not. No.
Ever.
And a lot of the people who didn't like it, they were like, it's kind of like a Jerry Bruckheimer. Like, it was so good at what it did. It was almost as good as a Michael Bay movie. So you sat there going like, okay, so they're doing Michael Bay as good as Michael Bay, and they're doing like fuck you to Michael Bay as good as fuck you to Michael Bay can be. I don't like this. So the movie got like a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's because people didn't quite get it. Whereas the people who did get it were like, holy shit, this is genius.
I think something that Trey Parker's really great at, and like you said with Borat, is that the joke isn't really about the specific thing that he's making fun of. Like, That's My Bush. Remember when he did That's My Bush?
Yes, yeah.
The joke really was not about Bush. It was making fun of sitcoms. It just used the template of something completely absurd and everything. But it was actually a great sitcom parody. It had nothing really to do with Bush. Like, it was just using him as a figure. And I think Team America is much the same. Like, Team America is making fun. It's like the best possible, Michael Bay movie, but ridiculous. Like, Trey Parker could totally make a Michael Bay movie if he wanted to.
Everyone thought Team America was going to be the straight up fuck you to Bush, like a total mock of America. Right. And it turned out to be more of a mock of shitty action movies than it was of what we were living in at the time.
Which is weird, because now I know Trey Parker. Like, back then I was young, so I thought that's what he was going to do. But now I see everything he's ever done, and I'm like, okay, I totally get it now. It's not, because he doesn't like pick a side. He's just using it as a genre joke.
I sat through the Book of Mormon next to a Mormon and an atheist, and I am somewhere in the middle of those two concepts. Okay, so it was like this genius, like, coming together of minds, and we all laughed so hard through the whole thing. Like, I didn't know the guy sitting on one side of me. I didn't know the guy sitting on the other side of me. I just sat there with these two guys, and we all were dying laughing. I still think that was the best piece of entertainment I've ever seen in my life.
Once again,
the Book of Mormon is number one. Oh my God. The Book of Mormon was the number one best piece of entertainment. movie, book, music, anything ever. Trey Parker and Matt Stone made the greatest piece of entertainment ever written in history for me.
For two guys, they sure seem to do that a lot, don't they? I mean, like, if I look back on my life,
God, they always
seeing South Park the movie and Team America in theaters are two of the best theater experiences in my entire life. You know what I mean? Like,
so I remember, I have a funny story that I don't know if I've ever told before.
Oh, please.
My friend's mom dropped us off to see South Park, the movie.
Okay.
I was maybe 11, 12, something like that. Pre-high school. She dropped us off and we walked up to the booth straight up like in the movie. And we were like, 3 took tickets for South Park. And they were like, IDs, please. And we were 3 like 12-year-old boys. We didn't look like adults. Right. We looked like 12-year-old boys. And we were like, well, fuck. We're not getting into this movie. So we walked away and we walked outside and we were like, well, what do we do? I don't know. I guess we buy tickets to Wild Wild West. So we went up and we bought tickets to Wild Wild West. We sat through Wild Wild West and then we snuck in. Like we walked around the corner as Wild Wild West ended and we were like, is anyone looking? Go, 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 go. And we ran into South Park and went and watched South Park just like the kids in the movie would have done.
That's amazing,
and we're like,
dude.
Yes, this is what we wanted. It was like the best movie theater experience as a 12-year-old kid, like sneaking into the movie that you weren't supposed to see, which is about a movie about kids not supposed to see movies.
Right, it's a movie about South Park, the movie existing. It's fucking incredible. I don't think...
We had a meta moment where we all looked at each other and we were like, this is fucked up. We're living through this.
Is there anything better than, like, if I could bring a moment back to my life, it would be sitting in the theater hearing Uncle Fucker for the first time again.
Yes.
Yes. I just remember how I was not prepared for that. And I was like upside down in my seat laughing. I've never seen anything like that before. You know what I mean? Just to
the only time I laughed harder was sitting through Passion of the Christ with a bunch of nuns sitting next to me.
No shit.
And that's a true story. Nuns crying, watching Jesus being like literally, it was like Eli Roth torture porn. Bloody. I mean, that movie is so gory that even me being a horror fan, I was like, what the fuck are we watching?
Like, a little bit much, right. I remember
sitting next to me.
So my story on Passion of the Christ is really simple. My mom is really religious. I took her to see it, and I'll never forget. She was quiet the entire movie. Didn't budge. She hates horror movies. Hates them. Watches the entire movie. As soon as it's over, she turns to me and she says, well, that was it? Like, okay. And I was like, what did you want? She's like, I thought this was supposed to be really like gory. And I was like, you wanted more? She didn't think it went far enough. And I was like,
oh my God.
But yet she can't even watch a horror movie.
Jesus. Wow.
It's amazing.
I sat through that movie next to like 6 nuns who bawled the whole time. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, he hasn't even got the nails in his hands yet. Like, it's going to get worse, ladies. I'm sorry, but it's going to get worse.
But come on, how great was the moment when you walked in and you saw you were about to sit next to nuns before watching the
I picked the spot.
Okay.
Okay. I could have sat anywhere else, but I saw 6 nuns, and I'm like, well, that's where we're sitting.
Did you hear like any of when there were reviews, when it was over, did they say anything like, oh, that was pretty good, that was a good movie? I mean, did they like it?
No, they didn't make it through the movie. We got to the part where Jesus got the nails through the hands, and like the 6 nuns got up and walked out. And then I got up and walked out with them because I just had to hear what they had to say. They walked out into the like lobby and they were like, it's just too much. It's just too much. And I was like, okay. And I went back in.
God,
and watched the rest.
Not that I think I want to like argue for the Passion of the Christ, but you'd think people that devoted their entire existence would at least stay to the credits.
Torture of a man. I know exactly. Yeah, like, that's exactly. I wanted to say that, but I was too young. If that happened, I would have been like, "No, gals, I'll buy your sodas. Let's go back."
Also, back then, didn't the Pope like give it his stamp of approval? Like the Pope said
he did.
Yeah,
and the movie's pretty on point with what happened, like with what the book says. So you know.
It's just funny that nuns would be like, nope, the thing that I've devoted my life to, I can't watch it actually happen. According to Mel Gibson. According to Mel Gibson, you know.
I'm pretty sure I heard one nun say, I don't think it's bad. I just can't watch it. I was like,
I guess that's fair.
Wow.
That's fair.
That's fair. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but
I wonder if Eli Roth likes it.
I don't know. I wonder if he did. He probably was bored.
I don't know. He likes some pretty wild stuff. So, yeah.
He also does like when you have to set up a character and 3,000 years of setting up a character to see them bloodied on screen. That's kind of Eli Roth's MO.
I'm a fan of him as a person, but his movies they don't always speak to me, I'll be honest. But
I'm a big fan of The Green Inferno. I think that movie gets underplayed. I think The Green Inferno is his one great movie. I think that movie is. Yeah, I really love that movie. I'm
kind of indifferent. I've seen it, but
yeah, a lot of people have seen it. I saw it in the theater and didn't like it the first time. I actually hated it the first time.
Yeah,
and walked out of it going like, so he went Cannibal Holocaust, but kind of boring. And then I watched it again a few years later, and I was like, I kind of like the characters and sort of like the gore. I think I like that movie. No, and now I love it.
The gore is good. The gore is good. No one's saying it's not.
I love that movie. It's if you get what the Hannibal Holocaust is, and you understand who Eli Roth is, it's kind of a masterpiece. I really like it.
I can see what you're saying.
It's really, I don't know. I have a hard time explaining why I love it, but I also I like it. I like the movie. I think it's good. I watched Knock Knock and did not like that one bit. And I should have I love Keanu Reeves. I love that idea. That movie fucking just
I'll say this. Knock Knock seemed like it was Eli Roth being sarcastic. Like he didn't even seriously direct the movie. It was just like the way that the performances were and stuff. It was like, he can't be serious. The whole time I was watching.
Right, but
I admit the end joke made me laugh. Like when Keanu Reeves is using his finger to try to not post the thing and he accidentally hits send when he's buried alive. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's pretty funny.
But the joke isn't worth the work that goes into it, as opposed to to me it was what Funny Games. It was like Eli Roth's version of Funny Games,
right?
Except it wasn't as good as Funny Games. Like Funny Games is a fuck you to the audience,
right?
This wasn't enough of a fuck you to the audience. I don't know. Knock Knock just bugged me.
No, but it gave us the free pizza
I'm with
speech.
You, though.
It gave us that free pizza speech, which I think it's been...
Yeah, right.
It's really popular on YouTube because it is really funny. And it's Keanu... It's not fair because Keanu is better than that movie, but that delivery is
I think that's what bugged me. What bugged me was the fact that it was someone... I love Eli Roth, and I think he, as a person, he's amazing. I think Cabin Fever is a great movie.
Maybe the best setup, the setup joke payoff ever in a movie.
Yeah, and I think that he has a lot of really great ideas in him. I'm just not a Hostel fan, and I just get bored. I don't know. I think that Green Inferno is amazing, but I also think he is the epitome of someone who can make a movie for someone at a given moment that they're in.
Yeah.
So the way I love Green Inferno, that's because I was in the right moment when I saw it. And he's making a movie for 20% of the audience, which is what I respect.
His audacity is kind of charming. The fact that whenever I see him, whenever he talks about his own movies and stuff, I don't feel like he cares that they're not cultural touchstones. He kind of wants them to be hidden gems on a shelf.
Well, the irony of the fact that Hostel probably has as many haters as The Good Exorcist does, and it's a movie I made for $7,000.
So can we talk about that for a second? People hate The Good. You're getting a lot of hate for The Good Exorcist, and it's not because of the religious connotations. You're saying it's just they hate the movie. Is what you're saying?
it's just, I think the people who hate it just don't get that it was made for nothing. They watch the movie thinking it's going to be a good movie, like it's going to be like a big budget movie, and they get lost in that concept.
Right.
So like, it's really hard to watch a Marvel movie and then watch The Good Exorcist.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like they're not the same thing.
But
like,
it's rare that a movie
thing.
like The Good Exorcist is going to have a budget like a Marvel movie. You know what I mean? Like,
of course,
it's very rare that will happen. It just for that story, you're going to have to make some concessions.
A lot of concessions.
Right,
and for
right.
Greywood's plot, even more. Like Greywood's plot, like that's why it's amazing that TUSK got made, because like it's a movie about a man who turns another man into a walrus. My movie is about a man who wants to be turned into a dog man. Like those are very weird movies, and once you embrace the fact that you have to make it with nothing, like then you can do whatever you want.
Do you feel the same as me with like how Kevin Smith has used his he's used like the Smodcast celebrity to actually make his own, like whenever anyone insults his movies now, I'm like, yeah, but the thing is, the dude makes $4 million movies and then he pays them all off with his very own built-in audience. So if you hate them, it doesn't matter. The guy is making the movies he wants to make, and the people that want the movies are getting them, and they're paying the movies off. I was like, Kevin Smith actually kind of figured it out. You know what I mean?
Dude, I beat the system before I started. When I did The Good Exorcist, I didn't pay $7,000 to make my movie. Robert Rodriguez paid $7,000 movies. Plus, I got paid to be on a reality show.
Right.
So that movie, for me personally, made money before I ever started filming.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I got a per diem that I saved. You know, like every week we got some money to go buy food. Instead of buying food, I ate carrots and put that money towards my next movie. Like, Greywoods was paid for from working on The Good Exorcist.
Awesome, and man. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I saved every dollar I made because I don't need to buy food. They have a fridge full of carrots. I'm going to eat carrots for the fucking week. And, like, there was always, beer. There was always Lone Stars in the fridge. So I could drink Lone Stars in the fridge if I wanted to.
I mean, that mentality goes right with the book. That's the mentality of the book.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I just went with the mentality of the book. So I've never paid a dime. And then afterwards, I made sure that I got the rights back to sell t-shirts. So I sold the Good Exorcist t-shirts to make money. I've made money off of this movie already.
That's awesome.
Like, I've personally made money off of the Good Exorcist because I didn't pay jack shit for it. But I talked to all these people who were like, I spent $20,000 on my movie and I need to find a way to make money back. And I'm like, well, that was your problem. You spent $20,000 on the movie.
Right.
With Greywood's plot, I spent the money that most people spend going on a vacation to Acapulco or Mexico or whatever. Like, I just put in $2,000 and I was like, okay, this year I'm going to put $2,000 into making a Dogman mask, booze, hotel room for my buddies. It was the best vacation we ever went on. Me and my friends went on a vacation to make a movie, and that's what we did. We made Greywood's plot. So, like, I never spent a dime because it was always fun for me. And then we made a movie, and now I get to make money off of that movie. And so budgets don't matter when you don't think about the budget of it.
Right, right. Also, on top of all that, you got to work with like your dream guy too. Like, it wasn't just that funded another movie. It's like you got to be on television and work with Robert Rodriguez.
Well, that's the big thing was there was one point while we were like writing and figuring this out that I turned to Daniel and I was like, dude, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I wasn't built for reality TV. I'm a white dude with a fucking goatee in Minnesota. Like, I am not reality TV material. And Daniel turned to me and he was like, let's just go be idiot dads. Like, worst case scenario, we look like idiots on TV and have fun doing it. Like, as long as we don't take it seriously, no one is going to go, those assholes, oh, fuck them. They're going to go, those were idiots on reality TV. They had a fun time and they didn't make a movie. We made a movie. Like, we somehow pulled it off. Like, we did it. Like, that's all we care about is that we did it and look like idiots on TV while we did it.
I mean, if anything, I thought you came off some of your cohorts were a little bit less reserved, but you seem like you were very on task most of the time. I wouldn't call you didn't come off like an idiot, man. But I mean, I was reserved. I kind of related to you the most. Point, yeah.
At one point, I was almost peeing my pants laughing at Avery in the front of the. I was laughing so hard because I was having fun.
Yeah.
I think without Daniel, I don't know if I would have had that much fun. And what I come across on the show is like, I was having a blast. And that is not a lie. I was having a straight up blast. I went on a vacation to make a movie with Robert Rodriguez, and that's all you guys get to see on the reality show. That's the truth. It wasn't reality. It was a documentary. That was me being me, and I had a fun time.
It was great, man. Now, is there any follow-up correspondence with that, or is that like? I'm not asking. Do you still talk to him? Can you do that? Is that something that?
Yeah, I talked to. Yeah. So I worked on Red 11, and I've worked on other Robert stuff recently, or within the last couple of years. And like with COVID, it's obviously slowed down. But
sure.
If Robert's listening, I would love to do. I mean, I have his email. We chat every now and again, and we can talk. But it's the same thing as you'd expect it would be, where it's like, it's Robert Rodriguez working on a movie with Ben Affleck right now, and I am making my next movie in my basement by myself. So you get as much correspondence as you get, but El Rey Network has been amazing. Cece, who was on the show as well, she's been great, and like everyone is awesome.
That's awesome, man.
But the thing that I think a lot of people feel, or the reason why they drop off, is because they get something awesome like this, and then they feel like that should be their big break. And when it's, when they're not Jimmy Cameron,
they don't keep pushing. They don't keep pushing.
You gotta keep pushing.
You gotta keep grinding.
You gotta keep pushing.
Yeah.
And that's what Robert did. Robert made 2 movies after El Mariachi that no one saw. Like, he did these things on the side, made for TV movies before he made Desperado. Like, you gotta do those other things, and you gotta work your ass off. And that's what I'm doing right now, is just trying to work my ass off to make sure people know how much I care.
I mean, it shows in the work, man. I mean, I was a fan of you on Twitter, and then you sent me all that stuff, and I became a fan of your stuff. So
nice.
It shows in the work. I guess it's also a good place to ask, where can people find that stuff? Is that available for rent?
The Good Exorcist. Yeah, so The Good Exorcist is available on Tubi TV with commercials,
awesome.
But I feel like the movie is best with commercials. Like, so when Daniel and I set out to make The Good Exorcist, we were like, okay, we have $7,000 on a reality show. That's really going to be like, what, $3,000 and reality show bullshit?
Yeah.
Let's make a 90s movie you'd see on USA at midnight.
Perfect,
like,
man.
That's what we wanted to make. Like, we wanted to make that movie that Joe Bob would be showing late night on, TBS, and no one was watching except for the few kids up going, was that a killer teddy bear? That's fucked up. I'm in. So we set out to make that, and like that's what The Good Exorcist is. So I really think on Tubi TV, if there are commercial breaks, that's the time to go get more popcorn or beer. Like, just enjoy it. But it's also available on Amazon to buy commercial free, and it's on Troma Now commercial free.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And
then we're putting out I'm working with Troma to put out Blu-rays right now. So we're hopefully going to have some Troma Blu-rays. But then Greywood's Plot is available on joshstifter.com. There's like a digital download. So you can get an H.264 file, which is like a .mp4. So you can put it on a hard drive and plug it into your TV and watch it on there. And a ProRes.
You can re-edit it. I'm just kidding.
You basically can. Like, the movie is the highest quality possible, ProRes, like, you get everything. And then there's like bonus features, there's audio commentaries, all of that stuff if you get the digital download.
Cool.
We're hoping to put out a Greywood's Plot Blu-ray very, very, very soon. So we'll see what happens with that.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I'm anyone listening to this, I'm highly recommending to check them out. I was not expecting. I think after I watched Greywood's Plot first,
Yeah.
I was not like I didn't know like I watched Great Woods Plot, and I think because of what I had seen on Rebel Without a Crew, I was expecting it to be a much different movie. I don't know why. I think I was expecting it to be more like The Good Exorcist, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, is this what this is what he is? This is what his stuff is?" Oh, okay, I didn't know, but yeah, they're I think they're both like they're both very you, but they're also both like they fill that both sides of your brain type of thing. It's awesome, man.
Exactly. Yeah. They're very, very, very different.
They are.
And I think one of the big things that people don't understand is like they both start out silly and stupid and weird, but then one goes very emotional and one goes very dark. And like that, I like that. I like a movie that halfway through shifts. So like, you know, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which I think both of my movies are
a
very
masterpiece.
much. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a masterpiece. God, that's genius.
Right.
And like that movie is genius because of the fact that it's about an idiot man that suddenly becomes relatable on every level. And I love that about that movie. So like that shift when your brain suddenly flips and goes like, oh, wait, Pee-wee isn't just a moron. He's kind of all of us. That's what I want to do. Like I love that The Good Exorcist is like Doug, or it's like Father Gill and Stanley are these weird ass characters, and then when the movie kind of shifts, you're like, oh, but there's like kind of like a weird religious element to this movie, and like it actually is getting into like some deep concepts. And Greywood's Plot, it's like, oh, these two idiot friends are out in the woods, pissing in the woods and acting like assholes, and then suddenly the movie becomes like, oh, it's a darker thing than what I thought.
Well, with The Good Exorcist, I don't think I was expecting it. I think I was expecting it to not have so much like dry humor, if that's like
it's dry.
There's a lot of dry in there. Like it's not just the crazy effects and the teddy bear and everything. It's also like them all sitting around like talking about what the hell's going on. Like that. That's what I actually kind of found funny about, like really truly funny about it. And
if you find dry humor funny, if you find like a man sitting around going, "Don't break mother's things," funny, like that to me, that's like one of the funniest moments of the movie, and is when the dad turns to Father Gill and he's like, "I don't know about this demon shit, but if any of mother's trinkets get broken, she's gonna have a shit hemorrhage." Like that to me is like such an awkward sense of humor.
It also has this vibe of like, man, it's a weird one, but Down and Out in Beverly Hills, where like an outsider comes into a household and changes everyone's lives sort of, and they're like attached to him in a weird way. Everyone has their own attachment to him. That's what it kind of reminded me of a little bit too. But I will say this.
I love that. Down and Out in Beverly Hills. This is bad. I love that movie.
It's a great movie. Your movie reminded me of that movie, so take that as you will. And
that's a total like 90s epitome of 90s movie. That is what we were trying to make. It's like Down and Out in Beverly.
Yeah. Like Father Gill would be like, he's the bum who comes to live with the rich people and teaches them about an outside opinion. And they're like, it's just in your movie, it's just an exorcist that lives with a family who's never encountered it before. But I will say, anyone that watches Greywood's Plot, I don't want to give away that I don't want to say that it was a bummer to me, because the very ending, I will not spoil. Let's not spoil it. Made me laugh out loud. The last shot of the movie.
Yeah.
So even in all the darkness that you laid out, that moment I was like, all right, that's great. That's what made me fall in love with it. That moment right there. I don't want to spoil it though.
I will say, for me personally, it's a move. Like, if I had to choose, if right now you were like, you could pick one of your movies to make a sequel to, I would pick Greywood's Plot, because like
really?
I want to know. Yeah, because Greywood's Providence. I want to know where Greywood's goes next. I want to know what it's like for him. I mean, it's the Frankenstein story.
Would you do like
what happens?
Would it be a different, almost like a different genre leap, or would you keep the same type of tone, or would you do like a Gremlins 2 type of thing, where you take that starting point and go nuts with it?
Gremlins 2 is a good example, but it would be the exact opposite of what Gremlins 2 did.
Okay.
So Gremlins 2 went like straight up B movie, over the top, goofy.
Making fun of the sequels and the original and all that. Yeah.
Gravewood's Providence would be a very, very serious movie. It would be the second half of the Frankenstein story.
Yeah.
Because Frankenstein is, when you make Frankenstein, then the townspeople have to find out about it.
Right.
Well, we never saw what happened when the townspeople find out about what Graywoods is doing. I want to make the movie when the townspeople find out, especially in the modern era of social media.
Right.
What happens when Graywoods tape that he hands off, spoiler alert, but the tape gets hand off at the end, and what happens when we know what he has created? I want to see that movie. I want to know what happens when Frankenstein's monster is unleashed on the world.
I would absolutely watch that movie.
That's the movie I want to make next.
Hear that? Anyone with money?
I know, seriously. That is what it's come down to.
Jake Busey, if you're listening. Right.
Oh my God! And Jake Busey as a weird, fucked up Graywoods monster.
Hell yeah!
And we don't even set it up. He just pops up like the dog in the what the fuck is the movie? The spores travel through space.
Yeah, I'm lost.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
There's a scene where the dog with the weird bearded man face pops up. I want that Jake Busey dog man head to pop up, and I want Jake Busey just to be hired for a day to be like a weird dog man head who's just like,
hey man, you get some of these guys, they have a day rate that might be affordable for one day. You know what I mean?
I know Jake Busey probably does. I could get Jake Busey on.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I remember somebody telling me Dan Aykroyd was like $25,000 for a day. So,
oh man, I could get Dan Aykroyd.
Jake Busey has got to be a little less, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, definitely less. Yeah. Jake Busey and I are going to work together someday.
I believe in it, man. If I ever talk to Jake Busey, I'm pointing him right to your movies.
I love it.
Is there anything? Number one, dude. Seriously, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, totally.
This went way back. This is awesome. I think our taste is extremely similar, which I guess I kind of got from Twitter. I could feel it. Is there anything else that you want to plug or like point people to besides the movies, which I'm encouraging anyone listening to watch?
I mean, I'm all over social media at Josh Stifter on Twitter, at Flush Studios on Instagram, and then joshstifter.com. Just check me out. I mean, if you search me online, you
pop up.
We did this a couple weeks ago. My family was doing like look up each other on Google, like Google each other.
That's not fair. You were on television.
Oh. I know. They were like, oh, Facebook. You have a Facebook thing on Google. Oh, look, your school thing pops up. Oh, Josh, mine is like 100 things long of like. I mean, so much internet. I am all over the internet. So
just look up your name, basically, and they'll find if they want it. They'll find it.
You'll find me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait what you do next, dude. And anytime,
thanks for having me. Hopefully, Scumbag. I'm going to be working on it, and you guys can check out Scumbag. And I've got 2 other features I've been writing recently that we're hoping to shoot in the spring. One of them is starring the other guy from Greywood's Plot. Keith, who is Miles in Greywood's Plot, like my friend. My dream is to make him the star of a movie, so I'm going to work on that. It's a movie where Keith goes to kill his dad with his 2 imaginary puppet friends. So that's the movie I'm working on right now.
That's amazing, man. Well, if you ever want to just talk about stuff, you ever want to pimp stuff on the podcast, you let me know, man. You're always welcome back. I just,
dude, we should just get together and talk about Eli Roth again. That's fun for me.
Yeah, man. I'm always down.
Or anything. Yeah.
I'm down. I mean, I have on this channel alone, I have 2 movie podcasts, so I'm down to talk movies whenever you want to. So let me know.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
All right. I think that's good, man. I'm gonna stop recording.
Right on.